5 o'clock. The alarm does not startle him anymore. It is just a signal to begin the same movement he has repeated for 7,000 mornings. John sits up, feet hitting the cold floor before his mind fully registers the day. He skips the silence of the house, moving straight to the door. By 5:30, he is behind the wheel. The highway is already a river of red taillights, a slow-moving chain of people heading toward the same fluorescent-lit desks. 20 years of this. 20 years of trading the sunrise for a cubicle. He watches the speedometer needle flicker, his hands gripping the wheel with a tension that never really leaves his shoulders. He merges into the slow lane, eyes fixed on the bumper ahead. There is no variation in the route. There is no deviation in the schedule. Every mile covered is another hour of his life exchanged for a paycheck that arrives, sits for a heartbeat, and then dissolves into the demands of the month. He drives. He arrives. He begins again. The raise was 10%. A thin envelope of extra paper that felt, for one moment, like a genuine shift in his trajectory. John did not hesitate. He walked into a showroom and pointed to the largest SUV on the floor. He signed the papers, his pen pressing hard into the carbon copy, feeling the weight of the new monthly payments settle onto his shoulders. He then traded his apartment for a larger space in a newer building, hauling his boxes into a room with higher ceilings and a higher rent. He stood in the middle of that empty living room, surrounded by boxes, waiting for the feeling of success to catch up with him. It never arrived. The first of the month came, and the paycheck hit his account. By the 5th, it was gone. Rent, interest, insurance, and the maintenance costs for the new machine in his garage. He checked his balance on his phone. The number blinked back at him. 0. He had worked harder, earned more, and ended up exactly where he started. He had simply increased the speed of the treadmill. Across town, Sarah lives in a room that holds only what she needs. Her studio is quiet, the walls bare, the space efficient. She earns the same paycheck as John, yet the path her money takes is fundamentally different. While John's capital flows out to cover the interest on his heavy vehicle and the premium on his square footage, Sarah's capital flows into a brokerage account. She sits at a small desk, opening a document that tracks the growth of her shares. Her rent is low, her overhead is controlled, and every dollar saved is a worker she recruits for her future. She does not look for the immediate thrill of a new purchase. Instead, she looks for the long-term yield of a growing company. Every month, she repeats the same action. She moves a portion of her income into assets. The contrast is sharp. Where John builds a life defined by the cost of his surroundings, Sarah builds a life defined by the strength of her portfolio. She knows that money is not a reward to be spent, but a tool to be utilized. She watches the ledger, marks the growth, and prepares for the next phase of her plan. When the weekend arrives, the divergence becomes a physical reality. John heads to the retail district. He walks the aisles, scanning for the latest gadgets, his hands hovering over boxes that promise status but deliver nothing. He swipes his card, exchanging hours of his life for electronics that lose half their value the moment he exits the store. He returns home to stack these items on shelves, watching his living space grow cluttered with things that cannot pay him back. He does not know how to read the fine print of a tax code or the mechanics of asset allocation. He avoids those topics, finding them too dry, too heavy. Meanwhile, Sarah is elsewhere. She sits before a glowing screen, the room quiet. She is buried in a dense manual on tax law, her finger tracing lines of text as she calculates the long-term impact of her choices. She is not buying, she is building. She spends her hours constructing an online business, piece by piece, line of code by line of code. While John fills his home with depreciating plastic, Sarah fills her future with sustainable equity. The weekend passes, and while John has only more chores to manage, Sarah has a business that is now one step closer to operating on its own. John exists on a knife's edge. His bank account is a revolving door, catching his paycheck on the 1st of the month and flushing it out by the 5th. Rent, the high interest payments on his luxury vehicle, and a mountain of recurring bills strip his balance to 0. There is no cushion, no buffer, and no margin for error. If he misses a single shift, the entire structure he has built tilts toward collapse. He checks his phone, seeing the digits blink to near nothingness, yet he keeps the engine running, locked into the relentless momentum of his own expenses. He is one minor accident or one missed payment away from total systemic failure. Meanwhile, across the city, Sarah moves with a different rhythm. Her assets are not static, they are gathering weight. She watches the dividends from her shares trickle in, a slow but steady stream that increases with every cycle. While John's life is defined by the immediate pressure of what he owes, Sarah's life is defined by the quiet accumulation of what she owns. Her foundation is solidifying, while his is eroding. He is standing on sand, waiting for the tide, entirely unaware that the water is already at his heels. The sound came at 7:15 a.m. A sharp metallic crunch followed by the engine dying in the center lane of the highway. John sat in the silence of the cabin, the steering wheel suddenly heavy. As traffic surged past him, he turned the key. Nothing. The car, his main asset and primary burden, was dead. He sat there for an hour, watching the tow truck pull it away, knowing he had exactly $40 in his checking account. By noon, the mechanic delivered the verdict: a massive transmission failure. The repair cost exceeded his entire monthly surplus. John stood in the lobby, his hands trembling as he stared at the paperwork. He did not have the cash, so he did the only thing he knew how to do. He signed a high-interest loan, trading even more of his future labor to keep his present status afloat. As he walked out into the parking lot, the weight of the debt settled in his chest. He realized then that he was not owning his life. He was merely paying for the privilege of keeping his current cycle running. He was a prisoner of his own standard of living, working only to satisfy the machines he could not afford to maintain. That same afternoon, while John sat in the dim light of the repair shop waiting for his loan to be processed, a notification pinged on Sarah's phone. It was not a bill. It was a digital deposit notification, a dividend payment from her growing portfolio. She was not in a meeting. She was not behind a desk. She was sitting in her quiet home, reviewing a balance sheet for her small online venture. The numbers on her screen shifted upward, a silent, automated increase that required no additional hours of labor. This was the result of 5 years of redirected capital. While John was currently signing away his future wages to fix a depreciating vehicle, Sarah's capital was compounding. She closed her laptop and walked to the window. There was no anxiety about the next shift, no fear of a sudden expense, and no desperate need for an emergency loan. Her money was working in the background, a relentless engine that functioned even while she slept. She had built a system of value that existed independently of her time. The peace she felt was not a lack of problems. It was the presence of a solution. She had traded the pursuit of status for the pursuit of equity, and today, that equity paid its first real return. John remained paralyzed by the belief that he needed a massive windfall before he could begin. He waited for the perfect market, the perfect salary, and the perfect timing. He is still waiting. Across the city, Sarah sat at her table, looking at a record of her very first investment. 5 years ago, she did not have a surplus. She had exactly $50 in a brokerage account. She did not wait for a promotion. She did not wait for the debt to clear. She took that $50 and bought her first fractional share. It was not enough to change her life that day, but it was enough to break the seal of inaction. While John spent his weekends hunting for gadgets that lost half their value by Tuesday, Sarah spent hers compounding that initial $50 seed. She proved that the barrier to entry was never the amount of money in the bank. It was the habit of waiting for a moment that never arrives. Perfection is a mirage. It is a mental cage designed to keep the status quo intact. Sarah understood that the only difference between her and John was the courage to start with what she had. She stopped preparing to live and started building the machinery of her own independence. Now, the screen shifts to you. You are standing at the same crossroads that John and Sarah faced. Look at your own calendar. Count the hours you spend in transit, the hours you spend at a desk, and the hours you spend trying to recover from the exhaustion of the previous day. Are you building a life, or are you simply maintaining a cost of existence? Every paycheck you receive is a transaction. You trade your finite, irreplaceable time for a sum of money that is immediately consumed by the demands of your lifestyle. You can keep running this race, chasing a finish line that moves further away with every luxury purchase and every missed opportunity. Or you can acknowledge the reality of the system. Money is a tool. It is not a trophy to be displayed or a reward to be spent. It is an instrument of production. You have the choice to stop treating your labor as your only source of value. You can begin to move your capital into assets that generate returns while you are not there to hold them. The decision is not about your current salary. It is about your willingness to stop trading hours for pennies and start building a structure that outlasts your daily effort. The path you choose today defines your reality tomorrow. Stop waiting for the permission to change. There is no perfect moment, no magical windfall, and no future version of yourself who will be more capable than the person you are right now. Every day you delay is another day the cycle tightens around your neck. You are trading your life for a paycheck, and the market does not care if you grow old in the process. You have two options. You can remain where you are, trapped by the fear of risk and the comfort of the status quo, watching your time leak away until you have nothing left to trade. Or, you can make the decision to treat money as a builder rather than a consumer. Open the account, study the asset, buy the first share, do the work that compounds while you sleep. The difference between the person who is trapped and the person who is free is not luck. It is the refusal to wait for tomorrow to fix the mistakes of today. You are at the end of the line. The next move is yours. Will you stay in the race, or will you choose to build your own wealth? Stop waiting. Start building. The clock is running, and the choice is yours alone.